What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. Today, we're going to be going over where all 30 teams stand entering the 2024 preseason. Posted today, October 4th, by Andy Bailey on Bleacher Report's website. So let's just jump right on into this. At number 30, we have the Wizards, just being one of those bottom of the tier teams. I'm excited for preseason to watch guys like Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, just kind of getting into the flow of the NBA pace and the game itself. But as far as their actual roster and season, we know that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. You look at guys on this roster, Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole, Kuzma, Jonas Valanciunas. That's not any sort of competing team. That's going to be a bottom five team for sure. And yeah, the big thing is trying to add a guy like Cooper Flagg to the roster. Next up here, the Utah Jazz. I'm kind of surprised there's not another team that's on this list before Utah, but Utah not going to be playing Laurie a lot during the preseason. They're going to be focusing on those young guys, the Keontae George, the guys, Walker Kessler, seeing what they can get out of him, as well as some of these other vets that they have, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, John Collins. They're probably going to look to move some of those guys to try and get a few more assets as we move on into the season. Teams like Orlando looking for a point guard with, Colin Sexton for the right offer and everything like that. So next up, we have the Detroit Pistons. Pistons, young team, just brought in some vets. They added in a shooting coach as well. You have Cade Cunningham there, obviously going to be a bright spot for this roster. Who knows what kind of side of Jaden Ivey we'll get. I think that we'll have a better season out of him than we did last season, just as he was trying to learn the game at the NBA pace. They brought in some shooters, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley. That's going to help space the floor, will help Cade Cunningham a lot, so that should be a bright spot. I think that they're going to be a little better than expected. Next up, 27, Portland Trailblazers. I was so high on Scoot Henderson coming into the year when he first got drafted, and of course he had a pretty rough rookie season. He started to pick things up there at the end, but I'm hoping that he can have a big jump. I'm hoping he can show flashes of what we were looking at comparing him to guys like John Wall. So I'm really hoping that we see that. I also hope that the Blazers can find a trade partner for one of these big guys, one of the DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, or even Donovan Clingan if you decide to move off of him if the package is right. They also have Jeremy Grant on the roster that everyone is sought after. Everyone is looking at Jeremy Grant as a possible championship glue guy. So be sure to look out for, trades of those guys. Next up here, the Brooklyn Nets, 26. We always see every offseason Ben Simmons in the lab working on a shot. I really hope this year he actually plays a decent amount of games. Last year he only played 15. I hope this year we can see him averaging like 11, 9, and 8 or something like that. Just seeing if we can get a kind of resurgence out of Ben Simmons. Obviously, Cam Thomas is very exciting on this roster. He's a bucket getter. He's going to be someone that is a huge question mark this next offseason because he will be getting paid. So I'll be interested to see what he can do there. Dorian Finney-Smith on this roster, Cam Johnson on this roster looking to get traded as well. Here we have the Charlotte Hornets at 25. A decently young, exciting team, but the problem with them is LaMelo Ball, their star, is somebody who always is injured. He's not playing games. So how can you build around a roster? So I hope this year they look to give Brandon Miller the keys and let him flourish, let him go crazy, let him do his thing, and then let him be the number one. And then you don't really have to put as much pressure on LaMelo to actually play and succeed. At 24, we have the Chicago Bulls, which this photo right here just showcases Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Io, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball. The biggest problem with this roster, so many guards. There's 5 right there. Yes, they might be looking to move off of Zach LaVine. Yes, they'll probably look to move off of one of these other 3 guards here, or one of the other 4 guards here too. Who knows what we're going to get out of Lonzo. Lonzo's probably going to need some time to get back to the full swing of things if he can ever get back to the full swing. He's a huge question mark. If he can kind of showcase that defensive versatility that he has and he's a viable option, I know inside in his head, the game's still there. It's just whether he can execute that on the athletic side of the ball. Next up here at 23, we have Toronto. Toronto has some exciting pieces on their roster, of course. You have Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes. That's just basically what they're going to look to do to see really what we have out of those three guys. So it should be a decent year. They could be a play-in team, could be a dangerous team to face in the playoffs round 1. 22, the Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young-centric team. Last time we saw a fully Trae Young-centric team, they made the Eastern Conference Finals. So who knows, we'll see that again. As, of course, the DeJounte Murray partnership with Trae Young did not work at all. It was just not good. I assume that they're going to be a play-in team. Here we have at 21 the Los Angeles Clippers. Having guys like Kawhi Leonard, who knows how many games he's going to play. James Harden, he said on Media Day he's going to be looking to get back to that old James Harden, that prime Houston James Harden. I realistically don't see that. But he said he's comparing his old game to Luka, which Luka won all the way till he made the championship. But realistically, I don't think James Harden, even at his best, I don't think he was Luka Doncic. But who knows? We'll see. At 20, San Antonio Spurs. Now, these two right here is what I'm extremely excited about for the Spurs. Seeing all the lobs and everything like that. I think Victor Wembanyama last season wasn't utilized to a T. Not his fault per se. They just didn't have a point guard that halfway through the season they made that adjustment to put Trey Jones as the point guard. But now you have Chris Paul, who's going to be running a ton of pick and roll with him. We'll probably see a bit of a revival in career for Chris Paul as well, because his assist numbers are going to be through the roof. Playmaking going to be through the roof for him and Vic. It'll be nice to see. 19, we have the Houston Rockets, a very young team that is just going to be looking to develop. Reed Shepherd, of course, who looks like a great fit for them. Probably number one, in my opinion, on odds of winning Rookie of the Year. But we'll see. You know, the Rockets team could be a dangerous team that we could be looking at. Oh, crap. We very undervalued what they can do. Especially with the question marks around Jalen Green, whether they're going to look to move him or not. That'll be interesting to see as the season comes forward. At 18, the Miami Heat. I think that Jimmy Butler is about to have an all-NBA kind of season because of his opportunity in his contract extension and contract year. He's going to look to just go out there and ball, in my opinion. And I think you're going to see probably 65-plus games out of him this year. He's not going to look to sit out because he's going to want that money. So we're going to see a younger Jimmy Butler come forward than we have seen. At number 17, the New Orleans Pelicans. Interesting roster, of course. Zion Williamson deciding to grow a beard here. It doesn't look too bad, but this roster has some interesting pieces. DeJounte and Zion should be a pretty decent pairing right there with the passing ability of DeJounte and, of course, the pick and roll options with Zion. I'm intrigued to see this roster as well. Brandon Ingram is still on this roster, so who knows what they're going to look like come trade deadline. 16, Sacramento Kings. Sacramento is an interesting roster also because you guys have seen the previous videos. I'm not the biggest fan of this pairing of DeMar, Sabonis, and Fox, but I understand trying to at least make a move and do something in the future right there. So do something for your future. Of course, Keegan Murray, valuable piece right there. Kevin Huerter, great shooter. They could have something there. I'm just concerned with his defensive versatility not being fully there. At 15 here, we have the Indiana Pacers. Interesting, of course, media day from Tyrese Halliburton. But this roster should be very exciting. Should be one of those League Pass season teams that will probably be number one for most people because they're very fast-paced. They're very quick. They can play very, very fast. You're expecting this team to average like 115 every year from now on. So, number 14, Golden State Warriors. They are a roster that has a lot of question marks, of course, because they added in guys like Kyle Anderson. They added in, of course, Shake Milton, Buddy Hield. It's going to be an intriguing adjustment to see what they look like without Klay Thompson. Now, of course, they still have Steph Curry and Draymond, but can Draymond get away from the antics? Can he just play basketball? I know he's a hyper-competitive guy, but you got to be able to stay on the court in order to help out your team. Number 13 here, the Los Angeles Lakers. Could be LeBron's last season. We don't know. Could be a potential he plays another 3 seasons. We're not sure. But if it is one of his last seasons, you best believe he's going to try and go out swinging. This roster could be good. It has all the intangibles that you need to have a good roster. I think J.J. Redick being the head coach could be something super intriguing. He said on Media Day that he might have found the issue with Anthony Davis' jump shot. With that, if he can solve that jump shot, he said he wouldn't reveal what the issue was as well as how he plans on fixing it, but if it does work, then he'll reveal it. I'm interested to see what they do to utilize a different Anthony Davis shooting form this season. At number 12 here, we have the Orlando Magic. Could be a super, super, super dangerous team. Adding in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, other players around them getting better with their three-point shooting as well. Paolo Banchero just being that guy. I think that this team is very intriguing, and I'm probably going to be my number one watch team from from League Pass. Sorry. At number 11 here, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that is really tough to gauge on where they're going to land because before Ja missed all these games and everything, they were a very high seed in the West. After that, of course, they had a pretty poor performance last season. Who knows what to gauge for this Grizzlies roster? Now coming back fully healthy, had made some adjustments. We haven't really seen a full season with these guys in Ja, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. And then you add in a guy like Zach Edey. Who knows what we're going to get out of Zach Edey? I think he'll be a decent lob threat as well as a little good pick and roll pace that you see with him and Ja. But who knows really where to gauge them. At number 10, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously having locked up Donovan Mitchell for a few seasons. Evan Mobley and him are going to be a good pairing there, of course. They brought back most of the roster, so they're going to be an interesting team to watch as they continue to develop that chemistry together. Number 9, Minnesota Timberwolves made one of the big splash trades that we just saw. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo now being a part of this Timberwolves roster. Definitely some negative connotation towards the trade from what you saw on Twitter and analysts and everything, bringing in those guys instead of just running it back with Cat. But at the end of the day, they still have Anthony Edwards, they still have Rudy Gobert, and they had a guy who was an All-NBA caliber player in Julius Randle, so we'll see if he can get back to that. Here at number 8, the Milwaukee Bucks, a bit of an older roster. They made a few moves in this offseason to bring in some depth, bring in a guy they brought in, three-point shooter, and just did what they could with the roster without doing too much. They didn't move off of Brook Lopez yet. They hadn't moved off of Chris Middleton yet. They're going to run it back with Dame and Giannis. But right now, for some reason, I am blanking on the guy's name that they brought in. He played for the Lakers, three-point shooter. I am just totally blanking on him. Taurean Prince, that's his name. Thank God I remembered that. But Taurean Prince being on this roster. At number 7, we have the Phoenix Suns. Finally brought in a point guard, so the 3 stars don't have to worry about it. And they brought in Monte Morris to be a backup. So definitely having some upgrades on this roster, bringing in a guy like Mason Plumlee as well. I really liked that for them. They did what they could, just like the Bucks made small adjustments that might be big stepping stones for them. At number 6, the New York Knicks made the biggest trade of the offseason in acquiring Karl Anthony Towns, so we will see how they're able to adjust with him. Of course, they lost one of the Nova boys in Dante DiVincenzo, but it was for the better because he didn't want to play a lesser role, and they were going to have to put him in a lesser role because you have Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges here. He was going to have to come off the bench, and he doesn't want that. He didn't want a lesser role. He wanted, even if he was coming off the bench, wanted still those starter minutes, and that's just not something they could offer. Number 5, Dallas Mavericks. This jersey, look at this right here. This looks like an old head at the park. Just does not look like something I'm intrigued in. 31 just looks hideous. I understand the reason behind it. Guys that came in before the free agent signings and all that, the Jason Terrys of the world that came to Dallas, and they chose number 31. That's why he chose 31. I just don't love it. It just looks hideous. It just doesn't work for me. But as far as Dallas, they should be a decent team. Number 4, Philly might be the most dangerous team in the league because of this superstar talent that they have here if they can pair the health with it. Joel Embiid, if he doesn't miss games. Paul George, if he doesn't miss games. Of course, Tyrese Maxey. He's not going to miss games, but these two right here, if they can pair together and the three of them can pair really well together, it's a dangerous team that you got there. Last time that we saw Paul George with other superstars, multiple superstars, i.e. the Thunder days is what I'm talking about, not before the Clipper days, he was an MVP candidate. I just want to put that out there. Not saying it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. At number 3, the Denver Nuggets. Denver, of course, losing out on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from returning, but they bring in a guy like Russell Westbrook. Adds that talent. Christian Braun, he is ready to take that next step, hopefully, and then who knows what we'll have out of Peyton Watson, but this roster doesn't look too bad. Christian Braun, another year in the league, could be somebody that does take that step there for them. Number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder, being one of the best teams in the league. Top to bottom, this roster is very deep. They've got a lot of versatility with guys like Chet being able to play 4 and 5. You have, of course, Alex Caruso, who can defend 1 through 3, sometimes 1 through 4. Even like J-Dub and Lou Dort, who can defend at multiple positions. This is going to be a really good defensive team, as well as a decent offensive team, of course, because you have Chet, who can create his own shot. You have Shea, who can get his own shot. J-Dub, who can get his own shot. As well as they're going to be hounding teams, which will make for good baskets by forcing turnovers and everything like that. And, of course, number 1 leaves the Boston Celtics. I've talked about these guys through and through, about how, of course, it might be a little biased, but I am a Celtics fan. They've got one of the best rosters. They just won a championship. It's only between a handful of teams to take that from them. So, all right, guys, if you did enjoy this content, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment down below on who you think will be the best team coming into this season. So without further ado, it has been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.